Dato Dr. Ananda Kumarasiri, what are your views regarding the challenge of drug rehabilitation?
Personally, I think the approach must be established. When you talk in terms of rehabilitation, you must also understand what is the problem. Without understanding the problem, you can't rehabilitate. And much of the failure, it's a universal thing, it's not a Malaysian situation, a universal thing, is because this particular fundamental requirement has not been approached. The problem of drugs is a problem of addiction. It is not a problem of the drugs being available. It's not a problem of drugs being denied to the person. Drugs will be there, it will continue to be there. That's one important factor. The second factor, which has been usually overlooked, is that the addiction is decided or is determined because of a mental state. Because of the mind, the state of mind, the person gets into drug addiction. To rehabilitate him, you have to deprogram the mind, not the body. Unfortunately, all our efforts are on the body part, the physical part, where we try and detoxify the person. Then we try and make him do certain things so that he might not go into drug relapse into drugs again. But we don't have a psychotherapeutic approach to deprogram the mind. Most of the programs are physical training, military training, and all those things which still does not touch the mind. So I would strongly recommend that all rehabilitation programs must have a basic component, the major component rather, of a psychotherapeutic approach. Psychotherapeutic approach, you have two aspects. One is the normal medical approach of how you try and change the mental makeup of a person so that he will or she will abhor drugs. That's one. That is the medical, they have certain therapeutic aspects on that. The other aspect is the spiritual aspect. There must be some spiritual input where the person will find strength and confidence in not wanting to go into drug addiction again. If you don't approach the spiritual aspect, which is a very powerful kind of deterrent, self-deterrent, it's not somebody imposing it from outside. You yourself do not want to go into drugs then. If we have that, then we will be able to have a better situation of reducing the relapse cases. As it is, we already know that most countries, including Malaysia, relapse is 90 and over %. So there must be something fundamentally wrong. This is not yesterday, this is not last year, this for so many years it's been going on.
So the statistics is not only in Malaysia but
it's universal. But where in countries where they have used the therapeutic aspect, both in the medical way and also in the spiritual way, then you have a better statistics of not having so many relapse cases. So this is very important. Now I'd like to go to the next point, and that is also a point which we have not taken into cognizance. That point is that we are dealing with a human being. We are not dealing with some object, something that we have made. Now if you don't understand the human being, then how do you treat the person? And what is this human being? This human being is the physical being, the hands, leg, the body, the eyes, ears, the tongue, the mouth, and all those physical aspects, the biological aspects. But there is also the mental aspect. The human being is made of both mind and body. So we are not looking at the mind. Again, this is the other dimension. If we recognize that the human being is made of mind and body, then the drugs being the problem of the mind, all the more reason why we must address this problem of the mind. The mind, if we understand it correctly, is the one that makes us. In other words, the mind is the maker, the mind is the master. Now let me show you by example. Some people don't understand this very easily. I have taken this white paper because I like the neatness of it. I like the fact that it is clean, unblemished, very pure, and it's a sign of purity. I like to identify myself. Now let's assume that you have selected this, and let's listen to you. Why do you select this? Give me a reason why you select this or any other color. Just say
Abnormal.
abnormal. Okay, this is abnormal. Now when I say I, is it my hand? Is it my eyes? Is it my legs which hold me? Why? Why do I say I? What is this I? And when you say you, what is this you? Is it your hands, your eyes, your mouth, your ears? It is the mind. It is my mind that has made me like this or select this. Now, same with drugs. Addiction, it is an undisputable fact that addiction is all triggered by the mind. Now, if addiction is triggered by the mind, if we recognize that, as I demonstrated just now, the mind is the master, the mind is the maker. Now, if you want to have successful rehabilitation, then you must deprogram the mind. Now, how do you deprogram the mind? Your pertinent question. You want society to come in and help. Now you have, as I said, the medical thing, let the medical people do it. Then you have the spiritual thing, that's where society must come. So organizations like temples, mosques, and churches must be able to come forward and be part of this program. It is not some NGO alone trying to bring about rehabilitation. It must be a total community approach.
So why now the community is not doing that?
Partly because they don't understand the problem. As I said, the whole problem has not been approached properly. Even the government, for example, including Malaysia, historically, we have all the while tried to solve the problem of drug addiction through supply reduction. Even today, most of the money is gone, millions and millions gone to track down the suppliers, track down the drug, suppliers. That's not the problem. As I see it, in very near future, you can make a drug in your house like you make tea and coffee. You don't have to go to suppliers. You don't have to go to some shady place to get, because drugs is available. What is a drug? You take some cow dung and burn, it becomes drug. You sniff some petrol, it becomes drug. So drugs have been there for centuries, long ago. It will continue to be there, and it will become more easily accessible. You can make a drug in your house. After all, tobacco is a drug, alcohol is a drug. So if we don't recognize this, then we are failing. Drugs will be there. It is now the mind that we must develop, both in terms of prevention and also in your activities of rehabilitation or the curative aspect. Now, unless we go into these fundamental aspects of the drug problem, we will be still doing only, minimal success will be achievable. You just cannot avoid it, because we have not addressed the fundamental problem. And I would like to see NGOs like you all working closely with religious organizations. Doesn't matter whatever religion. Because when they have that belief, because they need, it's also a psychological problem, as I said. Who takes drugs? Those who have lost identity, who have no sense of purpose in life, who have no conscience, or who have come from broken families, who have no love, who have nowhere to go, who are frustrated. These are psychological problems, emotional problems, and you have to treat it medically, as I told you, and also spiritually.
So why do you think our rehabilitation, our government effort, they don't put it the psychological aspect?
So we have to, that's why now it's our job.
We don't have the psychologist, or there is
no understanding of the problem. Because normally, I mean, pardon me for saying it, normally we always look at things on the outside, the physical, the external. But drugs is not an external problem, it's an internal problem. That's one. When you ask me this pertinent question, why still? Partly because we have not made it, we have not made awareness. Our awareness program, what you call it? Tanna. Our awareness program is all on the physical side. You show somebody physically, not smoking. That's not what it is. It is not that. It has to be internalized in the person from the education system, from the home. Drugs don't start when you are grown up. Drugs start when you are a little boy. If my father, for example, is smoking in the house, even as a child in the house I see, I will never feel that smoking is bad. So how many advertisements you put day and night is not going to convince me it is bad, because from small I have seen him smoke. So who are we fooling? We are not addressing the problem at the root. The root is when the mind functions, even when the child is a little child in the home, not when the child goes to school. So we always address a problem after it has happened. We don't address the problem before it happens. By the time a person becomes a drug addict, it's already too late.
So meaning that
the root is behind. We don't address it in school. We should address it in the house. We have to have what is called home education. When we were small, our parents told us a number of things. Today parents have no time. The nurse, the Filipino or Indonesian maid is teaching the child, the TV is teaching the child, not the parents. So how do you deprogram by just advertisement? Tanna, you cannot do that. You have to deprogram it even before the child goes to school, and it has to be a continuous process. And it's not just the outside appearance cigarette is bad. You have to make the child internalize these beliefs through activities, through participation, to seeing that this is not on. So we must have a zero tolerance to this.
So in your experience or your knowledge, is there any syllabus or method that has to be inculcated in?
Oh yes, lots of it. It's all there, we are not using it. For example, when a child is in the home, we have to behave, the family has to behave and function in a certain way where there's no cigarette, there's no ashtrays, there's no liquor, but instead you have to give something else. There is respecting the parents, worshipping the parents, participating in prayer together, going out for healthy activities, associating with the right people.
So the knowledge is there, it's written.
Yeah, but not practice.
Or we don't know that.
No, we don't practice, and we teach it as though you're learning math, science, history, geography. You ask them to study, and then you ask questions, and you give exam. What for? That is not what is required. They all know. The drug addicts know that this is bad. This not that they do not know. The doctor knows smoking is not good, but yet you see the doctor smoking. It is not the problem of not the child not knowing. It is the problem of the child not being what they know. Knowing is one thing, being what you know is a completely different thing. So to move from knowing, which is what we are doing, we are just telling Tatna is not good, we have to now take it from there to being what they know. To be what they know, they must internalize their knowledge. And internalization comes through mental cultivation, where the mind accepts this as something which is not good. It becomes part of your being, it becomes part of your personality, and it forms a protective shield. So you must insulate the child from small, from these negative influences. That is the other aspect I'd like to talk to you about, that whatever we do, we are having a tremendous battle with all kinds of negative influences. Much as you are doing your work, there are maybe thousands-fold negative influences operating at the same time. So your job is not simple. Whether you like it or not, there is a TV showing people smoking, drinking, drugs and all kinds of things. There are places where these things are, happening. There are peers who are luring them. There are friends, relations, very close people who are influencing the thinking. So our job is not simple. Our job is highly complex. We are competing with a much bigger problem than what we see. So unless there is a zero tolerance, unless there is a total community involvement, we would be finding a lot of loopholes which are stronger than what we are trying to do, and therefore they will be lured to those negative areas rather than our positive. The other reality of human nature is that somehow or other the negative one has got a stronger pull than the positive one. That's why we need the spiritual aspect to counter this. By nature, human being is always aligned to the savage instincts. The human being is a very weak person, actually, very susceptible to all kinds of influences. And you ask them to be spiritual, becomes more difficult. You ask them to enjoy, they are able to enjoy. This is one of the things that attracts them.
So, how do you think the religious aspect can motivate them?
It has to be. Unfortunately, as you rightly pointed out, unfortunately, not much has been done, because they think, most of the religious leaders think that religion is nothing to do with social problems. That is the first problem that we face. They think religion and social problems are two different things. That social problems is not our problem. Our religion is that you must worship, you must pray, and that's about it. No. Religion means to develop the human aspect of the person, make the person a better human being. That is why we have religion. So most religions and most religious leaders, is not the problem of the religion, but most religious leaders think that you must do only those physical things, whereas religion is to make the human being a better human being. How do you humanize the person? What is the human being? A human being is somebody who is being human. That's why we have the word human being. The minute you are not being human, then you become animal. Manusya means the person with a mind. Manusya. Mano, from the word mano. Mano means mind. The mind is not brain, is more than the brain. So if religion is not making the person a manusya, and manusya involves all these problems, then we are having a big gap. So our job now is to make religious institutions and religious leaders and religious teachers aware that social problems is part and parcel of religion. It is the failure of religion when you have social problems. They should take responsibility for these kind of things. If religion is happening well, and nothing is, wrong, then you won't have the social problems. You will have a perfect society. So we must now tell religious leaders that this is a failing on their part. We must tell educationalists, people involved in education, is a failing on the part of education system. If you just put the education system to study, get 8 A's, pass exam, get paper qualification, that is not education. Education is to develop the human being, is to make the person more cultured, more religious, more spiritual. Because all religions teach you good. They never teach you all these things.
Any specific teaching in Buddhism?
Oh, lots of it. Lots of it. The first thing is, as I said, practice. Okay, even before you go to leave your home, the family concept should be there. First of all, the understanding of what is family, the meaning of family, the essence of family, the practices of family, that has to be there. Today we are not having this family because everybody is running after the ringgit. Everybody wants to become a millionaire. Everybody wants to have a Benz car. Everybody wants to have 3-4 houses, because that's what they see all around. You want something, just making money. Even education system, you see, sometimes I feel so saddened, that even the education system has become a money-making kind of thing. That's all they're looking for, how to make money, Open universities, make money. Not so much to make better people. The whole school system, somebody gets 8 A's, you put in the newspaper as the big thing. But some children are donating blood, doing this, doing that. They're not even counted for. We didn't talk about children who are doing voluntary work. We don't talk about children who have sacrificed to help somebody. But 8 A's for front page news every year. So what are we trying to? What is the goals that we're trying to propagate? We have to now propagate those things. Family. Then family practices. Pray at home, daily at home. Worship the parents. In Buddhism specifically, we have what we call Pancha Sila. Sila means virtues. There are 5 things you have to do if to make yourself, for your own self, not for anybody else, to go on the right path. And one of it is not to take anything which is intoxicating.
Suramere Macchapama Dattana Veramani Sikkapadang Samadhiyami.
So that means you yourself have told yourself, I will not take these things. And the mind works in such a way that if you tell your mind, I will not take it, the mind will not take it, which is called in science, in psychology, is called auto-suggestion. So every day, if you auto-suggest your mind, I am not going to kill, I am not going to steal, I am not going to take intoxicants, then you are programming your mind, at least for that day, I am not going to do it. So it's a very powerful internalization program I talked to you about. It's not the child knowing this. The child is doing it every day, and the child internalizes it, so that this forms a protective shield. The child is reminded. It is not by examination you pass it. You know all the answers to this. You know the verses. You know the text. You know the Bible, or you know the Quran. It's not that. This is doing it. This is practicing it. Knowing and practice, 2 different things. All the people who have done wrong, they know what they have done wrong. But those who do right, they are practicing it. That's the difference. And about the Buddhist principles, framework, essentially Buddhism is a way of thinking and a way of living in a wholesome way. Not just anyway, in a wholesome way. Now, Apart from this Panchasila, there are a number of Buddhist teachings or Buddha's teachings which very specifically create a preventive approach to this. One is, for example, mix with virtuous friends. We call it Kalyana Mitra. So if children, they congregate in the religious places, the families get to know each other and they mix with these families, the peer pressure would be a positive one. Peer pressure is not always negative. It so happened that the negative has taken control. We have to develop positive peer pressures. So if children from small are associating with like-minded children, then they have a safety net. They are not going to go astray. It is only when you don't have that safety net, then somebody else will pull them on the wrong side. So it is encouraged in Buddhism, and there are very clear texts with the Buddha illustrated the importance of community, importance of families working together, living together, being close to each other. It's not just one family. Because we are living in a community, the whole community must also work in tandem. You cannot just one family. So when it comes to that level, then it is the whole society having a zero tolerance to all these things. And a very fundamental thing in all kinds of teaching, and that is teaching by example. There are a lot of teachings we are doing. Everybody is doing that. But by teaching by example, very few. Teachers teach a lot of things. They teach not to smoke, but they are smoking. So parents teach not to drink, they are drinking. How can you convince a child or a teenager not to do something when you don't follow it by the pedagogy of example? And all our education system must follow that. All our preventive and curative rehabilitation programs must have that. There's no point talking about taking care of drug addicts if we don't show kindness, compassion to our fellow beings. It's not just only to drug addicts. We must have compassion as a nature, as second nature. It should come naturally to us. It should not be something only, something happened, then I must be compassionate. It must be us. That is called the human aspect, developing the humanism in a person. So if we have people in our society who have compassion, then we won't have the social problems, the psychological problems. Because the child or the teenager will always feel that there's somebody to talk to.
Now in the rehabilitation case nowadays, when we approach the drug, what do you give up? They say that I tried, but when I
go out,
nobody wants to help.
Yeah.
The parents chase them away. The society don't do anything. So how do you think we can rehabilitate the society first to rehabilitate it?
That's why we have this program is very good. I compliment you on this program to give that aspect that the drug addict is not the problem. It is society that's the problem. It is because of the nature of society. If you understand some of the drug addict background, you feel sorry for them. You sympathize with them. Some of them have no chance. It is we who made them, in other words, drug addicts. So if we can understand that, the more we make people understand that, then the better it is. Some children come from slums. So what are we talking about? Do we understand how they live? We don't. So society is responsible at the end of the day. We are all products of our society.
So how you can instill a responsibility to that, telling that this is your responsibility?
Yeah, but by drumming this. Everybody says this, not only you.
So that's the...
not only
how
you.
Do you think the campaigning activity, the media or the...
We must demonstrate by illustration, by case studies, that this is actually what happens. The drug addict is a result of the society that you have produced him. You have produced him. We have to change our value systems, our thinking system, as I said. It's the mind, it's the thinking process, the mindset. So our job now is to change the mindset so that we look within ourselves.
How we can...
This program, make this public, you know.
So the role of media, how do you think the role of the media, newspaper, TVs, are they doing enough?
No, hardly anything. I mean, for this past month, for example, what has the media covered on this? And we know it's a major problem. All the development that we're talking about, what is the point of those developments if, you know, we have these problems? Because these problems are going to bring all the development down so many bars. You know, they can destroy society. It's not only just drugs, HIV, then they go into, you know, robbing, murdering. They can murder somebody even for a drug. They're not the normal person, they're abnormal. They are sick, they are patients, but we are not treating them that way. So doctors must explain, religious leaders must explain, and not only explain, they must do something about it. It's not just talking. I mean, I just give you an example of what I try to do. I mean, I can talk, there's so many books, for example. It's no use talking about these books. I talk to the congregation about living aspects of Buddhism. How do you live Buddhism in your daily life? And this is one of the components I talk about, the prevention and the rehabilitation. If you want to prevent, you have to start it on these lines. If you want rehabilitation to succeed, you must look into these aspects. You know, because you have to look at the person with sympathy, with compassion, with understanding, with kindness, with love, and then you rehabilitate. Because as you have, you know, by now very clearly understood, there are so many problems of identity crisis, you know, no self-worth. How can a drug addict be rehabilitated if you don't remove those problems? These are problems of the heart and the mind. So detoxifying is not the thing, you know, and preventing him from going back physically is not the problem. It is to rehabilitate him emotionally and psychologically and spiritually. So the other thing that you raised earlier on, why they're not doing it, the other reason is that it is not easy. Most leaders want quick solutions. They like to show something physically tangible. But this one takes a long time and takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of change of the persons, not the addict. I have to change if I want to change the addict. And that usually people avoid. They don't want to change. They want the addict to change. There's no way. Because, you know, leaders, they're only there for a few years. You know that very well. They come and go. So we're talking about, you know, a continuous program every day for, you know, endless time. You can't stop it. It has to be from the day the child is born. You have to keep on programming these things. Who is going to do these things? Who wants to do? Only people, dedicated people like you, understand the problem, seen the problem, have shed tears, handling the problem. You know what it is, but how many of you are there? No leader. I don't see leaders going and doing these things. I don't see leaders at all doing these things, especially political leaders. Where? They're more interested in GNP, GDP, per capita income, so much exports, so much money, all dollars and cents. Because that's what the whole thing is going about. So we now need to tell them, look here, this is something that we have to do. This is a long-term process. You will not be there to see the results. You can't say because I did this, this has happened. No, because the results are going to be much later. But you have to do it.
So the participation of the society is important.
Absolutely, sir.
So the implication is not doing that, the nation
will suffer.
Might.
Will suffer. No, might. Will suffer. Because if you go, at some point you will find then society will crumble. When society crumble, what development are you talking about? The whole development will collapse. If there is AIDS epidemic all over the place, people won't be able to live. Finish. If there are drug addiction all over the place, this come next generation, as I told you, they will be drinking drugs in the house. They don't have to go to some other place. They'll have drugs in the house. You just take any pharmaceutical, you reconstitute what is shabu shabu. It's all pharmaceutical based. Most of the latest what do you call it? The latest one, ice, and the popular Malaysian one. Oh my goodness! No, the simple street name. What's it call it? They had a campaign once to stop it from the discos and all those things. No. Huh? Ecstasy. What is it? It's all pharmaceutically based. You can manufacture it in the house. Some people take aspirin and put Coca-Cola and all kinds of funny things. They take cough mixtures. So we are progressing. You can't help it. We are progressing to a stage where you can take a drug like you take tea and coffee.
Is there any case that a country cannot develop because of they don't deal with drugs addiction?
Quite a lot of it. Not the whole country, but certain sections of the society where they are just useless, and they are drawing revenue out of the country because they're creating diseases and all kinds of things. People are not able to work, absenteeism, murders, crime, high crime rate, all societies, but pockets, still in the pocket form. But when it becomes beyond control, then it's not pockets. If you just take one case of one gangster or some of this Kali Muthu type of person, how much it has cost government? The murder, the people, police after him and all those things. Those are all costs, social costs. So the cost is very high. But unfortunately, because we are quite prosperous, we don't see the cost. But poor countries, the cost you can see very easily, because it's going to come down and down and down. And slowly they're not going to do all these guns. They're going to put bombs and all kinds of things, because they don't care after that. So the social problems, we have to definitely look into it. It is so far tolerable, but next generation, I think, is serious.
Okay, maybe what is your advice to the society? How can we pull the society and do what our...
Yeah, one of the major tasks is to change the thinking of society and to make society change their thinking. You can't do it in just one day or one-off exercise or one-off program, one-off campaign. It has to be a continuous process, and we have to keep at it. We can't help it. But even if we can influence a few people, and if that few people can influence a few more people, then we are doing something. Ideally, it should come from the top. It should be a governmental policy decision to look into these aspects differently, so that it's easier than organizations trying a bottom-up process of convincing people that this is not quite right. So hopefully with your campaign, there will be people at the leadership level who will also join in and say, yes, this is something we have to do, and then we have it as a total program. Right now it is bits and pieces. We don't have a total program. We don't have a comprehensive approach. Different people doing different things, doing it on their own steam. There is some support here and there, but we are not looking for support. When you say society, that means everybody, and all strata of society must come into play, not just school teachers or doctors or religious leaders, all of them together, so that we will have a certain standard or norm where we behave that way. That is what we are. There's no other way we behave. And then the incidence of drugs and various other social problems of deviant behavior, it all comes from deviant behavior, would be minimum, or minimal rather. If we make that a norm of, this is how we behave, this is how we think, this is how we live, then somebody who is sticking out like a sore thumb will be easily noticeable, because there is no support from society. As it is, there is enough support because of either default, by not trying to do something to prevent and cure it, or indifference, or because there are enough of people who also are of that same mold. So we have to keep on working at it. I would like to see more leaders taking a stand on this. I salute all the organizations that are trying very hard, but I know their problem, because these are isolated organizations. You are like a drop in the ocean. The problem is like the ocean. You're like a drop. So you do something here, then something else happens this time. So it's a highly complex, overwhelming problem, which requires equally strong approach. You can't do just simply like this, so we must need more support from all quarters, and I like to see more spiritual involvement in it, as it is very minimal. The program that I was involved in Bangkok on the spiritual aspect, it was the first, that was about 3 years ago, the first spiritual approach Kongu Plan had on the problem of drugs. And there was so much that could have been offered, if only there's more awareness of these things. It's there. Even in Islam it's there. In Christianity it's there. It's a matter of now looking at it in the right perspective, making it is our responsibility to approach it that way. If we can do that, then we'll be more successful, I'm sure.
So do your organization do this thing for the members?
Yeah. It does not do it specifically. We have just started a few programs, but specifically like your organization, it does not look at drugs per se and goes, but the various other things that we do develops the safety net, as I told you. That's one aspect, and also the mental culture, the protective shield of the mind, because all that we are doing is developing a mental culture, a state of mind, an attitude of mind, a process of thinking which is wholesome. So if your mind is wholesome, then this becomes the person is protected from all these influences. So that is the holistic approach we are taking. That it does not have to be just drugs. It could be AIDS, it could be crime, all those other social ills. We avoid those things, and also to develop the person so that the person is a human being in the real sense of the word. Once we have that, then of course we'll have less of the problems.
So do you think in Malaysia we have enough material, books, journals, writing, newspaper, that
not enough,
educating the society how to deal?
Not enough, because this approach has not been looked, or rather the problems have not been looked along these lines. In fact, we still haven't really looked at it.
Can you comment on the printing industry or the media industry in this regard?
You don't blame the printing as such. It's just that we have not looked at it this way.
So the writer don't.
Not the writers. The religious leaders must now start changing their outlook. Then writers will come. Once people are able to see it differently, then the writers will come. I have written a few things myself personally, and I've also produced a number of books, mostly based on these kind of things. How do you apply spirituality into your daily life so that it becomes part of your way of life? the practical aspects and the practice. Knowing, as I said, is not the important thing. Is how you become what you know. That is the biggest problem we have.
So how about the response from the group?
Very good response, but I'm doing it as an individual. I'm not a big organization. Hopefully there would be a multiplier effect.
So if the campaign is going on what to do, the society might respond better to this kind of...
Oh yes, definitely.
Invite the right
My audience have always responded positively. I'll give you a very good example. You have learned English, right? You have learned ABC. How did you learn your ABC? You learned A is for, B is for, C is for cat. Okay. Have you seen an apple tree? No. You have not seen an apple tree. Have you seen orange tree? But you learn A for apple, O for orange. Why? And this has been going on for how many hundreds of years? 500 maybe years. A for apple and C for cat, B for boy. I want to change it, and I have changed it, because A for apple is what I call cognitive learning. See, I'm just trying to demonstrate even the education system. That means chair, table, all physical side. You see and you recognize it and you can associate with it. I want to teach children A for altar. In Buddhism we have an altar where we offer and we pray and then we worship, and we have the practice of Panchasila, practice in the house. Now the child learns that instead of apple. Never seen an apple tree and we learn apple. This is practice. The child is every day having the practice of going to the altar. So the altar makes more sense. B is for blessing or Buddha. The child is able to relate values relating to spirituality. C is for caring, not cat. The child learns to care for the mother, care for the father, fold the clothes, clean the room. You don't have to do fantastic things. Even care by washing the plate that she eats. I was brought up that way. I wash my plate after I eat, even today, because it's already part of my nature. I cannot leave my plate. Even if there is a maid, I wash it, because from small I've been washing, and I'm one of 12 children. Can you imagine my mother washing 12 plates every afternoon, every night? So I am helping her by washing my plates. On and all of us wash our plates. That came not because of knowing, came from being what I know. So like that, even from the alphabet, we teach them to move from cognition to affective. I call it affective. The 3 levels of learning. The affective is where your heart and your mind is involved. So you create the values, the feelings, the sentiments, the thinking. You analyze, you synthesize, you evaluate. All these things come. Then you have creativity. You have likings for certain things. Then you go to the 3rd stage called psychomotor. That's where your addiction problem is, where the mind and the body is involved in the learning. I offer the flowers in the altar. I am doing it. The mind and body is involved. S is for sharing. I share my things with others. K is for kind. I am kind to everybody. So I'm teaching these kind of things. Can you imagine a child learning that lessons compared to apple and orange, where I'm using 3 levels of education or of learning: cognition, affective, and psychomotor. So I internalize what I learn because my actions and my mind, psychomotor, are involved in my learning. It becomes me. I'm doing that. I produce those books, but because I'm not in any organizations, it's just starting. Hopefully there will be people who would take these things up and then start promoting these things in the whole education system. This is only an illustration. Then I talk about home education. I've also illustrated that in terms of guides to tell that home education is a big thing that we have lost. The society of the past was stable because of home education. Most of the things were taught before we went to school. By the time you go to school, the mind is already corrupted today. They've learned every of the nonsense from the TV. And you read in the newspapers, they're seeing, porno videos and all those things. Children, small children, and doing it in the house, in kampongs, not in the KL. Felda, the other day I saw some article about some Felda home. Can you imagine at what level we have gone to? Because the child is not there with the parents. There's no home education. So we all learn our values from our home, so that by the time we go to school we are strong. Despite all the influences, we still stand steady. Today we are so vulnerable. So vulnerable. There's nothing for us.
So it's important to control whatever coming to on the books, the TV.
Yes, absolutely. Why do we need all this rubbish? Why? What is the good of all this? We have to produce things which are more wholesome. As I said, it's not just talking, you have to do something. So I produce these books. I produce books like this as an example. Then I produce stories which talk about filial piety. How do you take care of your parents? And then this story is about an elephant who looks after the blind mother. An elephant looks after the blind mother, his blind mother elephant. So children, when they read this, they must start crying and feeling the same way, and they will then have the same feelings for their parents. Today they are not taking care of parents. Many parents are just neglected because we are teaching them this is what it is. Send them to some nursing home, or my life is more important. Enjoy. We must enjoy. We must have the fast car. We must have F1 style. That's what we're doing. That F1 is creating so much of problems on the road. Even my own sons, my son, F1 is big thing for him. I said, what the hell are you saying? But you have made that the norm. Everybody's talking, F1. So we don't need these things, and this is not Vision 2020. This is not development. Develop the human being. That is what we want. Humanize him. How much do you want to eat? How many cars do you need? Do you need millions? No. We want everybody to be comfortable and live a good life. So if we can change the value systems, our way of thinking, then we have a better chance. And we have a good chance because we are not a poor country. So we can afford to do these things. Some poor countries have no chance. They're just surviving.
So for the closing, if you anything for the society to...
Yeah, I appeal to society, particularly leaders at all levels. Does not any aspect. They can be political leaders, they can be leaders in schools, teachers, lecturers, they can be leaders in sports, to inculcate this kind of thinking, both in terms of how they can positively contribute towards a healthy society, which will then bring about a zero situation in terms of drugs and other deviant behavior. We have this kind of, and particularly religious leaders must take a greater interest and involvement in these kind of activities, so that both in the preventive as well as in the rehabilitation we will have a concerted, total approach, a comprehensive approach to the problem, and then we will have certainly a better statistics of success. Right now it's 90, and for so many years it's been going on. I remember PM Tun, former Prime Minister Tun, Dr. Mahathir saying, if not for organizations like you, it will be even worse. Permadam, he said, 90-something% rehabilitation relapse cases. So something fundamentally is wrong. I would say even 50% is bad. It should be the other way. It should be 90 success, 10% failure. But it is the reverse. And it's universal. I've noticed this in all countries. Some countries have developed what they call the therapeutic approach, but it's too clinical, as I said. You can't just have the medical only. You need also the spiritual inputs together so that it becomes more reinforcing. Some are essentially medical things you have to do, yes.
So how do you do about pengasih, the addict, helping the addict? Pengasih are all addict.
Yeah, if you get an addict who is already rehabilitated completely and you are able to notice that he has got a spiritual strength, then by all means do it. It is a successful story, because they are able to communicate with each other, they trust each other, they have more confidence. Not only that, this is a living example of a success case. I am not a living example of a success case. I am a living example of a preventive case. But for a person who is already a drug addict, he will see this person as a role model, and he is not talking just for the sake of talking. He is talking out of conviction, so he will be able to empathize greater. He will be able to accept this person and trust this person. These are all psychological aspects. Somebody else will take a longer time to win his trust, but this one immediately he can have greater. So those are the plus points of addicts. That is the reason. It's not just addicts. Why, you have to understand, and these are the reasons why. So if we have that understanding, then we will have more people getting into it. I would like you to also try and have more interaction national level, because it is something which we have to do on a total basis. You cannot do it, as I said, in pocket form or compartmentalized forms. The impact is not there. So go nationwide, have national programs, get a lot of coverage, get a lot of media, television, and other mass media, newspapers.
But now the audience happy with Academic Fantasia, the reality show. Do you think they will listen to this?
This is the problem now. We have to decide what society needs. Is this what we need? Because this draws money, this has got big people throwing in money, this is big business. Yours is not a big business. This is what I'm trying to say. Our whole value system is based on, make as much money as possible.
So because they are thinking that this is what the society wants.
No.
Is that the way? Or
you create it.
This is what the society have to know.
No. They're creating this demand. It's a business tactic. It's a marketing strategy, because this sells. And there are enough of sponsors. Who are the sponsors? They're all big money.
So how it should be?
So the leaders should now say, hey, look here, this is not what we need. This is what we need.
So is that saying
you can have different kinds of entertainment. You don't have to, glorify. When you glorify all these things, when you glorify, in the media, smoking and all, what for? Whatever you're doing is gone. You're spending millions. Here on the TV, every other movie there's somebody smoking, and their favorite actor is smoking. It doesn't work. It cannot work.
So leader has to determine what to go on.
Yeah, you say no, ban. No scenes of smoking, no scenes of drinking in the TV. Finish. Period. Why do you need excuses? It's not good. You don't need excuses. Finish it, just like that. If it's not good, then it's not good. I'm spending so much of millions here and then here, allowing somebody to do it. It doesn't work that way. It cannot. Pedagogy of example is very, very important in all of these social problems. And once you compromise and say, so and so can do, why can't I do? What's wrong? Nothing wrong. It's not just drugs, everything, I think. So social value is very important. National values should be such that we We promote these things, and we idolize those people who are doing these things. We have to give prominence. Even if he's an ex-addict but done well, give him prominence, because he went to hell and came back. No great thing if somebody has everything from birth, and then did well. So what? He got everything, he got tuition master, he got this, he got that, he got that. Naturally. So we have to now take people from down and give them some kind of